In my previous webinars, I've always pretty much started off with this slide right here. And this is the episode. This is the episode that brings it all together. The flow of information, how we store information, consume information, process information, and ultimately to arrive at some type of configuration and then, of course, necessary information around our configuration. So starting up here in the upper left-hand corner, here we have, some business system that might be generating some sort of data that engineering may find some use for. Typically, this has to do with ERP systems or perhaps sales systems. Some companies out there, some of you might have some sales individuals that go around the country and they engage with customers, and while they're in front of a customer might say, well, I'm looking for a product that does this. And those sales individuals sometimes will plug in some rudimentary data of what, size, scale, function, those types of things might be, at which point they might have their own system that generates some data to arrive at some sort of configuration. Why let that information go unused? Why not share that? If somebody's already doing the work, we should probably try to leverage that. And that's what we're talking about here. There may be some system that's generating the data. The data then gets stored somewhere, perhaps in a SQL database, maybe in an Excel file, perhaps even in an XML file or a series of files. And if that's out there somewhere, let's go ahead and use that information. And that's what automation is all about, is being able to leverage input information, be it either from some other system, a SQL database, or even information that a user might have input and we want to process that. So this is all just different streams of information that goes into our logic. Now, the logic can take the form of a number of different things. Typically, it's going to be either .NET code, VB or C#.NET, or it's going to be something around iLogic, because as we all know, if you use Inventor, iLogic is included. It's built right into the application. So anybody who has Inventor has the capability of doing some level of automation. This webinar, however, we're going to be talking about high-level automation, enterprise-level automation. You have many, many users. You have very specific ways of creating content. Maybe you have a definitive design standard that must be followed, or there's a lot of predictability and rules around how you go about creating information. Or perhaps you're an enterprise company that doesn't leverage those types of things quite yet, but maybe you're looking to get to that point. I personally engage with a lot of companies, and some of them are, picture perfect, quote unquote, in terms of how they develop their standards, their design practices. Are they leveraging best practices? Is there a particular level of education involved on a regular basis? Do they have an internal user group so they can share and collaborate different experiences and those things that other people might have learned? So if you are an enterprise company and you're not doing those types of things, perhaps this is that time where you should maybe have those conversations. Start thinking about what's the best way of doing things like that. How can we leverage those benefits? So we use the logic to develop our rules, at which point we pass that information, or we share that information with Inventor. In this case, Inventor is pretty much just a processing engine. We provide all this input information, we have some logic involved, and then we just let Inventor churn on that and process that information. And within that, the automation is going to be leveraging files that we've already created. So these are your IPTs, your IAMs, perhaps even your IDWs, DWGs. So this is typically like the output of your processing engine. There's a little consumption going on, but typically it's going to leverage all this information to arrive at your final configuration. Now, these black bubbles here, this has to do with Vault. There's a lot of companies out there that are using Inventor. Vault has its own API. There's certain things that we can do with Vault in terms of automatically checking in files and checking out files. And making sure there's a particular level of consistency with our data from Vault, and why not make sure we're trying to leverage that or automate that process as well. So there's a lot of potentiality there in terms of how we use our Inventor automation, which is outside of Vault. And then, of course, how do we get to our information that could potentially be stored inside of the Vault? So a lot of potential activity going on there in terms of just what's going on with Inventor and, of course, with Vault as well.